look at getting it from the sea and so on. So this is something that is fundamental on which we have to focus more. And there comes again, local communities, small and medium enterprises who depend on their local ecosystem. If we give them the responsibility, we enable them, we have there some chance to effectively achieving the SDGs. And I will conclude with one element. Thank you for bringing back the issue of sustainable consumption and production. The Arab region, like in Asia, but the Arab region is a smaller part, is categorized by a very a growing increase of the middle class. And the middle class in the world in general will be getting in the next 20 years 3 billion additional middle class consumers. If those middle class consumers, and you have them many around here in the country and in the room, including me, if we keep consuming the way we are consuming, we simply don't have the resources on earth, and the next wars will be on soil, on water, and so on. Keep in mind, China is now taking the soil of Africa openly. Government are agreeing on that. Saudi Arabia did it, Qatar did it, they all are taking soil in Africa. At one point, the government, if we have responsible government, they can say, we need our soil for our people. We will have another war on that. So that's why I come back to the soil issue. Consumption and production is absolutely fundamental issue. Each and every one of us, and I say including myself, and I've been fighting for sustainability. When I opened my cupboard, I said, why I have so many shirts? Why I have so many trousers? Why should I start giving, still I have too many. I have shirts that I put only 2 times a year. What the hell I'm doing and how I'm talking about sustainability. So we have to be also on our own responsible people. Let us lead by example. Awareness raising, yes, including the policy makers. Educating also the policy makers. Integrating in the curricula at universities a real program on effective sustainability. Not just, sustainable development, the 3 P. No. Effectively, what does it mean? We are not giving this to the architect, the engineer, the sociologist. We are not doing it. In Europe, they start doing it in collaboration with certain business schools. And the last one is no finger pointing. If we want to progress on sustainability, if we want to progress on sustainable development goals, let us just look at the solutions, the smallest one, without telling to the other one, you are doing wrong. By saying you are doing wrong, you don't make any progress. Thank you.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I'm here, right here. Yeah.
Please, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's all right. I can do it from here since there is no empty space. Do you want me to come down?
Yeah.
All right. Give me some time.
Take your time.
I thought there was no need to come downstairs, but since you're inviting me, thank you very much. So I'd like to take this opportunity and jump in because I have a few comments to make, and I think this is the right time to. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Ahmed for introducing me earlier. So I'm Dr. Ioannis Chachladakis, or Dr. John Chachladakis, as I'm known in scientific literature. I've been involved in the waste management sector for more than 15 years now, so I could talk about waste for hours. But I'll just try to compress what I have to say within the next 5 minutes. So first of all, I'd like to say that I fully agree with many of the things that our speaker to the top right, sorry, I forget your name, mentioned in terms of how we should view the SDGs as a system and not individually, although inherently they were created to be able to function individually. I think one correlates with the other and interrelates with the other. So that's the way that we should look at them as a system. And I would like to say that from the waste management perspective, it's one thing to put down a few things on paper and another thing, much more challenging, to actually put them in practice. So I guess when these SDGs were created, a bunch of people sat down at the same table and they agreed on that we should formulate a number of goals that would cover our entire life. Okay, that's one thing. But how do you implement those goals is another thing. And it's the most difficult one, and it's the most challenging one, and I think we're far from achieving it fully. You mentioned, I think, the fact that we deal with things differently globally and locally. How right you are. To give you an idea, so with regards to plastics, which is a material that I've been involved for the past 10 years now. In the UK, where I used to live for a couple of years, and in many European countries, they have imposed a fee on the use of plastic bags. All right. Here in Qatar, you can go to the supermarket, you can purchase your products, and then they're freely given to you. And then some. Even if you ask for some plastic bags, they will give them, no worries. Okay. Now, that's not a way that you can go about reducing your waste, and especially plastic waste, which is a very recoverable and very recyclable material and very valuable one. Plastic is oil, equals to oil. Okay. Another thing is that I always tend to say that prevention is much better than remediation. So why not prevent the plastic waste in the first place than spending millions of dollars on remediating and cleanup activities on beaches, shorelines, and all these things. In Canada, I think they have prevented the use of microbeads in cosmetics. So that's something that has not been done worldwide. Okay, and there is also other countries like India or China or many of these Asian countries that they have also imposed certain fees in the single-use plastics. Okay, that's something that we still haven't done here in the GCC area from what I know, to the best of my knowledge. So I would like to say, to make a general comment and end my small speech by this. So when the SDGs were formulated, as I said earlier, a bunch of people sat down at the same table and agreed on those. Okay. Now, implementing those at a global level is a multiplayer game, and that's something that we all need to understand. So there are stakeholders involved, there are decision makers involved, there are consumers involved, there are the manufacturers involved, there are the owners of the industries and the recycling facilities. Each one will look from his own or her own perspective the benefits that he or she can gain from implementing those SDGs. Now, are we willing to sit at the same table and balance those willingness, the things that we want to gain out of these things? Because the economist will look at it from its own perspective, the economic perspective. The waste management expert will look at it from the environmental perspective. The industry owner will look at it from his own perspective. Can we balance those perspectives? Can we agree on those perspectives? Can we stick to those perspectives in the near future? Can we all agree that with whatever we decide to do sitting on that same table, we will keep on and stick on it, not deviate afterwards? That's the most important thing. If we can all agree on taking the same courses of actions that will be to our mutual benefit, then we can have a good start to go. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah, I would like to add to the waste management program. In buildings, it's been very measurable. You can measure how many tons of waste you do and all that stuff, which is great. And in Saudi Arabia, since 2010, we started the initiative for green building in Saudi Arabia. We had no green building at all, or I mean, as a movement. And then now today in Saudi Arabia, we have like 1,000 plus buildings. We have the first housing, the biggest Lala. We have like all green building. But the thing is by practice, it's what had the government create their own companies that do efficiency for their buildings. So now in Saudi, we have like thousands of buildings, like government buildings, by government contractors, established specifically for building efficiency, like for as well. So we would like to, because of the energy, it's been our friend talked about energy, and we have the other side, which is the waste. It has not been done in our region as much as we would like it to have. So having how many tons, quantify it, you can measure it, and then you can limit it. So what we're doing in green building, as an example, trying to do this. But the challenge is when you go to neighborhood, when you go to cities, then the problem is multiplied. Then you go into decoupling issues, like economic, how do you, we have in Riyadh, for example, we've got like, the dumping system, like early morning. So, before the traffic, and then you see all these trucks coming to the country in the early morning. It's like, what is this, waste or supply? So the supply chain, now we have the value chain, and I recommend for everybody, especially for the researcher today in our loved college, is to look into a report called One Planet by United Nations Environment, which talks about the value chain, not only on the construction industry, but as well in the textile, as well in food. So there's a common denominator between food, text, and buildings. So the idea on city level, when you have like, waste management, it's kind of like, you don't know from consumption and production, you don't know from it. So what we're asking to look into decoupling this. Every time you have more production, you have more consumption. So it's kind of like, if you can get them together a little bit, so consumption and production, like I think you guys mentioned that, get close to each other so we can produce and consume.
Same thing. Same amount.
Like somehow that might be the ideal. But my point is, we have challenges in our region. I would like that to be reflected in the report somehow. For example, Saudi Arabia, we're the first invented oil industry in the 30s. I mean, oil was, so people accusing you of, for example, you're producing, but really, what about the consumption side? You're consuming. So if the consumption and production again get together. So now I look at Saudi Arabia, I believe, like since they invented and they work now, they have the top companies in the world for oil. I'm sure, I'm positive now with the policy, with the new upcoming policies, that Saudi Arabia have turned itself into an energy country, which means that the way they invented and they've been able to on their own to become the best oil producer, which is we get claimed for it, this is where the problem is. But also I think now we are looking into the biggest energy producer in the region with our friends, obviously, and our friends from the Gulf areas, because we're producing natural gas, the green supplies and all that stuff. So the idea is shifting. It came out of a cost. So that transition is where the report needs to be. We're in the midterm of the report. So are we in the not on the accomplishment, because that's way far, but in the midterm, are we in a good transition, not in a good accomplishment? Yeah. I think that's the difference. So are we in a good transition? I mean, for example, I see not many people talk about, criticizing NEOM and criticizing all these projects, but really when you think about it, we're pushing the limit. So can we do it? Can we dream it? Can we do a sustainable cities? Is it ever possible? We don't know. I mean, we're trying.